It didn't take Brandon Crawford long to get there. And what did you think of the signing?
No. I mean, saw it coming. Tried to write about it last week. Didn't have Crawford pinned down, but knew that they were shopping for a backup shortstop, a veteran. And It just was very apparent. Mosaic referenced it today. He even quoted from our conversation where I asked him well, what happens? And he goes, we don't have an answer. He goes, now we do. So, it was pretty clear that they were, looking for a veteran. Nick Ahmed comes up. He was one of the first ones that kind of came up, but Crawford was in that mix. It just wasn't clear which one, or if they wanted the right-handed bat over the left-handed bat. That was an open question there for a bit. But Crawford fits in. I mean, look, guys, he's got a great reputation. He's got a great reputation in the game. He's a reliable defender. He was in an interesting spot last year and played through a lot of injuries. And I kind of have a better feel for why he played through those injuries, just kind of asking around a little bit today. He's a guy who was in the final year of his contract with the only team he knew and had no idea what was going to happen after it. Not exactly a year that you want to, not try to play through things, right? Especially if you want to be a Giant for a while. Didn't work out, and now he is on a new team in a new state for spring training for the first time in his career, which is interesting. Good relationship with Nolan Arenado, knows Matt Carpenter really well, and so he also fits into that silo, to borrow a phrase from the Cardinals, of what they wanted to add, which was experience. Average age of the team goes up again, but so does the amount of playoff wins and rings in the room too.
Derrick, and I like what he said about Brandon Crawford. I particularly like what he said about, in effect, mentoring Mason Wynn and trying to help him out. And so he understands his role. He's a total pro, highly admired, respected player in the game, and he fits into sort of the off-season theme where Mo needed to attack that starting pitching problem. He signed 3 really experienced, deeply experienced pitchers that are pros and have leadership skills. He brought Carpenter back. He brought Crawford in. Kittredge is an experienced guy. This team has gotten a lot older, but I actually happen to think that's a good thing, given some of the insufficiencies in the clubhouse last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting because there's a real question as to, are we going to hear next year that it just had too many outliers, right? It was too taffy pulled thin, that there were too many young and too many old, because there's not the middle-aged player around really. Brendan Donovan is as close as you get, but he's not really. I mean, he's not even into arbitration. I guess it's Dylan Carlson is for service time. Ryan Helsley is for service time, but they still kind of come across as young because of their roles, right? So, at one extreme you got Lynn, Gibson, and now, Crawford. And the other extreme you got these 21-year-olds who are going to have prominent roles in Jordan Walker and Mason Wynn. And on the horizon, you could have Victor Scott, who's in his early 20s. So I think it's really fascinating that they just kind of they've cleared out the 29-year-olds, if you will. But they feel like the best way to speed the learning curve of the young guys playing for a team who traditionally has high expectations and this year has urgent expectations. They think that that's a way to help that. Jordan Walker and Mason Wynn are young guys with talent, and they are now, just because of, I guess, when they were born and when they were drafted, just fate has put them on a Cardinals team where it's not about learning to win. They got to win, and they got to win fast, and they got to win often, and they have to put last year behind them, and they are being relied on for that. And so the Cardinals have tried to outfit them with veterans who can help with that.
Yeah, listen, when you have all those young players with significant upside, that's no hype, that's a reality. They all do have significant upside. Then you have the guys who have been with the team for a while, and they're still on the younger side of 30. Nootbaar, Donovan, Edman's 29.
Well, there you go. There's the 129-year-old. So thank you.
Yeah. So Gorman's 24. You already mentioned
24.
Walker. I know. Well, he will be in May. I take that back. It seems to me when you have all those young guys with legitimate upside, and now you're bringing in guys that have all kinds of awards to their name and all kinds of postseason competitions to their name and championships to their name. And when you add it all up together, how much all of these older guys have done in their careers, the idea of balancing out the young players with upside with this established crew, even though some of them are no longer in their peak, they still can help you in a lot of ways. I like that idea. I think the Cardinals need that. I think it can only help unless everybody just stinks so bad that it doesn't matter. I don't think that'll be the case. So
that's interesting. Yeah. That would be that would be. I don't even know what that would be like to watch. I mean, it's not like out of the realm of possibility, because a team could completely be a clunker. It could be a lemon of a roster. That could happen. Just as it could easily all come together and just crackle with the right chemistry and take off and be a titan, a juggernaut, one of those 100-win teams. I mean, the swing of this team as far as what's possible, I find very interesting, because you could see so many different outcomes, because of the age of the pitching, because of the youth they're relying on, all those things. And they just need it to bend towards the better part of that spectrum. They have to have that. There's just this feeling around the camp. There's a pretty good sense. A lot of guys are really excited by kind of the feel of the team and everything like that. But there's this undercurrent of cannot lose the division, cannot lose games in a row, cannot lose from the start. It's really fascinating. I don't recall that in 2008 coming back from that team, and that's partially because they were probably 15 months removed from a championship. This is a team that's a decade removed from a championship of any type, and even longer from a World Series championship. So I think that's informing a lot of this. And if anything, Brandon Crawford's a reminder of that. I find that fascinating too, Bernie. Here's a guy who's walking in who beats you the last time you won a game in the NLCS. Oh, by the way, that was also the last time he won a game in the NLCS.
Yeah, he beat him twice. He beat him twice, 2012, 2014. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and now he's 37. That's just like it's like looking, I don't know what's the portrait of Dorian Gray. That's what it is. It's for the Cardinals. It's a reminder that it's been a while. And look at the career he's had, and he's had the bulk of it, and now has moved on to the second act of his career. And both of them are still looking for that next pennant.
Hey, Derrick, I know we got to go. One question, because I think the answer is pretty simple, but
you hear the barking in the background? That's my deadline. No, I'm kidding.
Okay,
I'm kidding.
There's unless there's injuries or something that they require a bit of a shuffle, it seems like all the bench jobs are claimed. They're spoken for. They're taken, right? And that would leave Alec Burleson out, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, unless they go down one pitcher, which probably wouldn't be wise with the schedule that they have. But that is something. I talked to Ollie, and we can get into if you want a real insidery baseball talk sometime. Man, I would love to have this talk with you. But I'll just do it briefly here. The need for a right-handed bat is less than before. Traditionally you'd be like, man, all right, Luken Baker has a place on this team because that's right-handed bop, and man, this team, teams want right-handed bop coming off the bench. I mean, remember, you think about the times the Cardinals went and signed a right-handed hitter specifically to play the corner position, but come off the bench and bop. The game's changed in a way that's less necessary. It's fine, the teams want it, but there's not as much use in late games for that batter these days, in part because of the 3-batter minimum. So they can have this left-handed leaning bench and not be stuck and not be exposed, or at least I think they can.
Yeah, it's interesting because Crawford actually has been pretty decent against left-handed pitchers, and Carpenter even last season.
Carpenter has.
Yeah. So, Both of those guys, because one idea that people were expressing, on Twitter and whatever was that, well, not that it would be a strict platoon because Wynn's going to be their shortstop, but he was much better against lefties at AAA last year. I mean, much better. Mm-hmm. And then you got Crawford who bats left-handed. So you could sort of you could do a platoon thing when appropriate, but the problem with that is that Crawford really hasn't hit right-handed pitching all that well. It surprised me, and I'm not knocking him. I'm just saying I was surprised by what I saw. Even when he was still a really, really good hitter, he was barely above average against right-handed pitchers, and that surprised me. So anyway,
they're going to make that decision based on getting Wynn rest more than getting Crawford matchups. Though they'll go with style of pitcher, not necessarily handedness.
Crawford can still get around on a fastball, though.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. So that it could be power pitchers. I don't know. Who knows? I do know this. I love having time with you and appreciate all the work you do. Thank you.
All right. Let me know when I can help you. Sorry about the brevity here.
No. It's fine, man. You got stuff to do. Thanks for all the great coverage. Looking forward to reading all of it on the Post-Dispatch STL today as a subscriber at both places. All right, one other thing. I wanted to follow up on that, Jim, real quick before we
Sure, we
got
time. We can keep it actually here.
Oh, okay, cool. So. I explained before we got Derrick on, I explained how, listen, there are differing assessments of his defense. And just to recap really quick, listen, he won 4 Gold Gloves. He knows what he's doing, but it's a matter of you get a little older, maybe you lose range. I don't know. He's also had to play with injuries last year, so that had to factor into whatever defensive issues he had because most of them were leg-related injuries. But anyway, two systems assessed him as a positive, as a plus defensive shortstop last year. 2 other systems had him in the negative side, so I don't know. I think I think he knows what he's doing. Well, I know he knows what he's doing, and I think that if he's healthy and his legs are good, and I'm sure he took all the necessary steps to try to make that happen, to make sure he's ready to go and he can avoid what happened to him last year, then I don't have any reason to really have any major doubts about his defense. 4 Gold Gloves says a hell of a lot, and the fact that he played hurt last season says a lot about the negative side to his fielding. But this is one thing. The other thing I mentioned, and I'm going to repeat it again briefly, his offensive numbers the last couple of years were really bad, and there's no reason for me to try to pretend they weren't. You go to Baseball Reference, you can look it up. It's all there. However, that's why StatCast is so valuable, because you can really separate some things. Sometimes the numbers aren't really – they're the numbers. They're a fact. They're accurate as far as bottom line numbers. Here's what they are. That's what they're judged on. I get it. But you also look for underlying factors and you say, well, wait a minute. Is this truly a lost cause? You go to Brandon Crawford's StatCast stuff. His hitting metrics were very promising in 2023. His hard hit rate was 43.5%. It was about 7% above average in the majors, second best in his career. His barrel rate percentage, much improved. His exit velocity was improved, nearly 90 miles an hour that last season. His sweet spot contact, in other words, hitting a ball about as well as you can hit it, that percentage went up in 2023. And against fastballs, 4-seam fastballs, he had a hard hit rate of 52% last season, which is great. Struck out only 18% of the time. And based on the quality of contact, a fair slugging percentage would have been .498. Of course, it was much lower than that in reality. But the point is, when you see that kind of stuff, you say, well, wait a minute. I ain't going to rule out some type of resurgence for him hitting in 2023. Not saying he's going to be a formidable hitter. I'm just saying I think he's got a chance based on this stuff. He's got a chance to be better than we think offensively. A lot of it will have to do with whether he can stay healthy as a player. The other thing is that, because I alluded to this with Derrick towards the end, people I've already seen people say, well, if they want it, they have a platoon set up. Mason Wynn bats right-handed, Brandon Crawford bats left-handed. First of all, they don't want to set up a platoon because they're committed to Mason Wynn being their guy, not only this year but for a long time. And they should feel that way. They'd be negligent if they didn't. But it's interesting from the standpoint that if you look at his numbers, right, Brandon Crawford has been kind of neutral in this regard, even when he was in his best hitting seasons. And I would say, he became a regular in 2012, and then his good years, so to speak, lasted through 2021. Even during that time, when he faced right-handed pitching as a left-handed hitter, he was slightly above average. I would have thought in some seasons he was better than that, but for the body of work during his peak, he was slightly above average against right-handed pitching. That surprised me. And so the idea that, Wynn did not do well against right-handed pitchers in Memphis last year. He pummeled left-handed pitchers. So if you want to do it that way, you make sure Wynn starts every game against left-handed pitchers. The only problem with that is that's only going to be about 25, 27% of the time because right-handers start all the other games. And then you can have Crawford against right-handed pitchers, maybe more than you would think or maybe more than you had planned. There's no facts that really support that makes sense. Because the last two seasons, he was brutally bad, Crawford, against right-handed pitching. And the other thing is, if Mason Wynn's going to grow on the job, how do you think he's going to develop if you're shielding him from right-handed pitching? Because, again, in Major League Baseball today, every team is going to face right-handed pitching about between 70 and 75% of their plate appearances. So you can't base everything on a platoon at such a crucial position like shortstop. But you can think about it. You can think about it if it's the right guys that would make it work. But that's not the case with these two guys for a variety of reasons, including the fact the Cardinals are building their future around Mason Wynn. And this theory about him, you shouldn't play him against right-handed pitch. You can't do that. He's got to grow into the job, and he will. And Crawford's not the weapon you think he is against right-handed pitching. So I just wanted to kind of cover that part of it. Jim, what do you think?
As we go through the stuff with Crawford, and you've hinted at this, but I really believe, like when people talk about his defense, he's the backup shortstop. All I want from him, make the plays they get to. You don't want a guy out there who goes, well, that one right between the legs. We got a guy who doesn't know how to play shortstop. You don't have that problem. Make the plays that you can get to. He's a former Gold Glove winner, and in terms of the bat, he should have, if he's healthy, he should be an uptick from what he was a year ago. And once again, we're talking about a backup shortstop. We're not talking about a guy who's supposed to lead your lineup. The shortstop position, basically in this batting order, if everything's going right, he's going to be at the bottom of the order anyway. So I know some people, this and that. I'm not overly concerned. I think he's going to be a good fit for what they need. It's more about what he's going to be able to bring inside the clubhouse, and helping out a Mason Wynn is probably a bigger value that he's going to bring than anything, as far as I'm concerned. But he's not going to embarrass himself out there. Let's not, they've had a lot of issues, let's just say, trying to find a guy who could spell a starting shortstop in this organization in recent seasons. They should not have that problem this year.
Yep. Again, it's just like I was saying early in the show. It's like, I don't know what people think a backup is supposed to be.
Yeah.
I've never really understood that. I don't get it. And I'm looking at some stuff on a data site that I look at for pitches and things like that. And, he against hard stuff, it's every category of fastballs against right-handed pitchers last year. 129 at bats. He had 5 doubles and 4 home runs and a triple. He slugged close to 400. I mean, that's for a guy who's playing hurt and a guy who had a lot of interruptions where he couldn't play at all for a long time. It's not easy to stay in your rhythm, your zone as a hitter. So he was able to. He really was respectable against hard pitches. And that's good to know because velocity from major league pitchers as a whole, continues to go up and up and up. And specifically against pitches clocked at 95 miles an hour or higher, he did a really good job. So this is the kind of stuff, to Derrick's point, this is the kind of stuff that Ali Marmol is going to be looking at when he goes to set a lineup. It isn't. Just forget about this lefty-righty stuff.
Yeah.
It's going to be more about the style of pitcher and what a pitcher's arsenal is. And Brandon Crawford, I keep saying Brendan because I'm used to saying Brendan Donovan. Brandon Crawford has shown an ability to flash that bat speed and to get around on four-seam fastballs. He's done a good job of it, even in his diminished state in terms of his overall statistics. So he would be the guy that you look at and you maybe give a spot start to when the other side's got a hard-throwing righty on the mound to start, right?
Yes.
He has not been as good. In fact, he frankly really, really bad against right-handers who are throwing a lot of breaking balls and a lot of off-speed stuff. His numbers are not good at all, or at least not last year. And that's the most recent thing that we should call upon because that's the most recent thing we have on him. So it's going to be about the style of pitcher that's going to but it's going to influence Ali Marmol's choice. And you know why I think Ali Marmol's actually pretty good at that? Oh, I know it's against the law to say anything positive. Forgive me. He insisted. He was adamant about it to the point of making himself getting ridiculed. Because Albert Pujols got off to a really slow start in 2022. And Ali kept running him out there against right-handed pitching. And Albert's numbers had not been good against right-handed pitching in his last 3 years in L.A. and with the Dodgers. And Ali kept saying, look, you guys, he told me one time, look, all due respect, you're getting this wrong. It isn't right-handed pitchers. It's the style of pitchers. I'm using him against a style of pitcher because Albert can hit certain right-handers really well. And believe me, we've researched this. He was absolutely right. It didn't happen right away. But Albert Pujols was much better than anybody thought, including me, against right-handed pitching in 2022. Ali's pretty good at that stuff. He's got other things he's got to get better at. He's pretty good at understanding how you determine matchups. By now, even the dumbest managers are like, well, they brought in a lefty, so I had to pinch hit a right-handed bat. That kind of. Okay, we got it. You're Casey Stengel. Okay, we got it. It's much more. It's much deeper than that now because of all the data that's available. It isn't righty versus lefty, lefty versus righty. That's how you get an advantage. In some cases, it is, but more and more, it's about style of pitching, no matter what hand they use to pitch it. And keep that in mind. But I think Ali will do a pretty good job of navigating this thing. I really do.